I think by now you all have the picture. We do not have to go through all the court appearances. The documentary will do that for us. We also don't have to go through all the violent acts. You get the picture. What I think you do not get is what is really happening here. I think you still think this is about a car. It is not. And it never was. This was, and still is, a coordinated deflection strategy to derail me from healing a black mind from the injuries inflicted by apartheid. We are facing a new, sophisticated form of slavery, of continuing to oppress black people, using other black people, inciting black-on-black violence. My educational programs were disturbing their design of trapping a black mind in indignity. And to date, my program is still not allowed to heal our children. I'm still blocked. If it was about a car, Standard Bank would have welcomed my first offer to be tested by their own forensic department. They would have welcomed my repeated written requests to resolve this matter amicably outside the courtroom. So before, during, after every court hearing, I used to beg Standard Bank in writing to resolve this matter amicably. But they were relentless in their refusal until they were forced by one ethical judge of the High Court of South Africa. Are Standard Bank, Pati Fedil. Why is everybody glossing over facts? I've read the papers. What is the problem? So on the next video, I'm going to jump right to the end of the court process, and I'm going to relate just the last two court appearances that actually placed all the abuse on ice for a short while. Because even after the car issue was over, the violent derailment of my educational project persisted. Remember, we had researched and finalized 3 cantons for 3 very different educational offerings, customized to the specific canton, to the specific province. To date, all 3 programs are still blocked. So this is not about the car. Let's all see the bigger picture here. Good afternoon, family. Today we are going through the last day of court proceedings. Judge Fabricius had told my daughter that he's putting her on the stand on this day, and we were fortunate to have our brilliant lawyer with us who had prepared everything. He had done the thinking and he had done the papers. So for the first time I had a bit of a break, and the judge asked my daughter if she's still representing herself, and she said yes. And then he put her on the stand. At this point, my lawyer said to me, "Your daughter is on the stand. Go and sit next to her and support her." This made me very happy. I stood up and I went to sit next to her. But this confused the judge a bit. He didn't know who I am. If you remember, he had asked my daughter, "Where is your mother?" And my daughter said, "I don't know." He said, "How can you know where your mother is?" So he didn't know who I am, because my daughter had told the judge that she's not allowed to know where I am because of the dangers we are in. And then she sort of intimated the things that we go through, but they were also in the papers. Then the judge asked her if she's still representing herself, and she said yes. And then he not read her rights, but like told her how the process was going to go. But the judge came with a killer move today that Standard Bank did not anticipate. The judge said, I've actually just ordered the transcript from Justice Fouree's court proceedings in December 2016, because really everything we were talking about that day was based on that court hearing. Standard Bank had lied and said my daughter acknowledged that she signed the installment agreement, and then my daughter had promised the court that she's going to look after a car. So to get the rule nisi, they were relying on those two lies. So the judge said, I cannot in my conscience grant confirm the rule nisi if I don't have the transcript and I see for myself that Ms. Hammond did make those two utterances. So he then said, I ordered the transcript this morning. I've also requested them to first give us an audio tape so that my registrar can listen to it and tell me what Ms. Hammond said. In the meantime, they'll be busy transcribing. Okay, so we all sat there and he started asking my daughter questions. My daughter answered all the questions. He said, I have never said I know anything about the car. If anything, I've told Standard Bank, the judge, and anybody who has cared to ask me, I have told them exactly the truth, that I've never spoken to Standard Bank. This is not my car. I know nothing about the car. I don't have money to buy a car of this magnitude. So for that reason, I've always said that. When Judge Fouree said to me, I want you to look after the car, my daughter stood up and said, I cannot take that responsibility. It is not my car. It is not even my house. So I cannot take the responsibility of looking after the car. So Justice Fabricia said, I want to see this in the transcript so that I know who is lying. Asked my daughter a few questions and then went back to the day of the attack. He said, please tell me what happened that day. So my daughter went on describing what happened that day. And when she started, she explained that she didn't know what was happening. She just came, she found the gate open, and when she got to inside the house, some men just grabbed her. And she said her biggest shock was when she came to the living rooms. She found me lying on my stomach with my arms tied at the back onto my feet. So I was lying there like a frog, and there were AK-47s in my head. And so, we had never spoken about this. I didn't even know what she saw. So she says, that is how I found my mother. And that's not how any child should ever see her mother. And then she started getting very emotional. And the judge said, okay, we stop. We stopped talking about this. Let's talk about other things. And started asking her questions. She stood her ground. She discussed exactly what she discussed with Standard Bank during the proceedings of Justice Fouree. Then the judge gave Standard Bank the chance to cross-examine her. Standard Bank, before giving Standard Bank a chance, he had reminded my daughter that he has to give the findings of the court proceedings that day to the DPP, who is the Director of Public Prosecutions, because there'll be two counts of fraud committed. There'll be a contempt of court, and there'll be perjury if my daughter is lying. So my daughter says she knows this. So when Standard Bank comes, they start with that the DPP is coming for the two perjuries, for the perjury and the contempt of court. And on top of that, you're going to lose your career. Don't lose your career for a car. Tell the court the truth. And my daughter says, that's all I'm going to do today is to tell the truth. That's what I always tell. then started questioning her. And at some point, Standard Bank came with a point that we discussed in a non-prejudice meeting. And my daughter said, I'm not obliged to answer that. I said, why? He said, because you are quoting something from a non-prejudice meeting. The judge said, Standard Bank? What you've just said now, did it come from a non-prejudice meeting? Yeah, my lord, yeah. And he said, cut it out. So this went on until Standard Bank finished. Before Standard Bank finished, the judge said, I have just received a message. My registrar tells me that she has listened to the audio tape, and Miss Hammond did say she signed the installment sale agreement. And Miss Hammond did say she'll look after the car. It sounds like she did say this. So at this point, I stood up. I traveled with my files. I stood up. I went to the file. I didn't want to disrespect the judge when he told us that he's ordered the transcript. I could have told him that I have it. I didn't tell him that. But if anybody says something that is not true, then I'll produce my transcript. So I stood up and I went to my files. I took the transcript file. I opened it. The judge is looking at me. I pulled the transcript. I took it to the judge. He said, what is that? I said, it's a transcript. He said, you have a transcript? I said, yes. Why? I said, because I've learned that Standard Bank denies everything. So for that reason, after every proceeding, I order the transcript so that when they deny, I can show them the truth. The judge said, bring it here. He said, give me time to read the transcript. The judge read the transcript. He was reading very fast. And then he went, there. The child has been consistent the entire time. She told Justice Fourie exactly what she told me today. This is her mother's car. She's got nothing to do with the car. She doesn't have capacity to look after it. She's never discussed anything regarding the car with anybody, and she's not going to take responsibility for the car. It is her mother's responsibility. Now I have to pause to highlight my realization. In this 4-year battle, Standard Bank has only gotten an order against me twice. Both times in my absence. Both times through unethical conduct. Both times through blatantly lying to the judge. What saddens me here is that the system allows such glitches, where Goliaths trample on the rights of little Davids with impunity. Summary judgment was wrongfully granted behind my back, whilst I was left waiting to be heard in court. Granting Rule Nisi was the worst abuse of power, as the judge was intentionally misled. Again, this was the same conduct Standard Bank was trying to slip on this day's proceedings. But fortunately, Judge Fabricius insisted on checking the facts. Judge Fabricius said, Standard Bank, I cannot make the Rule Nisi binding. I cannot give you the order. There was silence in court. And then he said, regarding the whereabouts of the car, I'm satisfied that Miss Hammond has nothing to do with it. She's been consistent throughout. He said, I also read that for the last 3 years, the mother has been trying to be enjoined. Then at some point, mid-sentence, he just stopped. And during all this time, he looks at both of us during all this time, and he was a bit confused. So mid-sentence, he just said, Miss Hammond, where is your mother? Please tell me the truth. Where is your mother? No. He said, how old is your mother? Because I know I don't look my age. So the judge was a bit confused. He couldn't place me as her mother. Then I stood up and introduced myself. And he said, you came? I said, yes, my lord. My daughter told me that you asked after me, so I came to honor your request. He said, fantastic. He said, Standard Bank, Dr. Mngadi is here. Is she under oath? And they said, no. He said, what I've read is that for 3 years she's been trying to be enjoined to the proceedings and you are refusing. Why is that? Can I join her today? Can I make an order now and join her to the proceedings? They said no. They were adamant. He asked a few questions a few times in a different way and they said no. And he said, explain to me, what prejudice would it place to the bank to enjoin the owner of the car to the proceedings? He says, Miss Hammond doesn't know where the car is. From the day of that violent attack at their home, she left the home to be safe in a hidden place. She doesn't know where the car is. The person who knows where the car is sitting amongst us. Why don't we enjoin her and ask her where the car is? They said no. I remember Judge Fabricius said, why not? He says, this case may be easily solvable if one just addresses everything to the crux of the case and gets on with it. He said, I'm not going to appoint myself as case manager in the agent court either, but I need to know what prejudice would Standard Bank suffer if we enjoin Dr. Mngadi today. He said, take instructions. The senior counsel went to take instructions. There was no chance they could say no, unless they didn't want to know where the car is. He came back and he said, okay, my client says we can enjoin her. Then he said, okay, now we adjourn. I'm going to go and have tea and I need to see you at my chambers, both parties, after this. After the tea, we went to chambers. He said, I need both of you to go and draft orders and then bring them to me for my signature. And this case has to move forward. We went. Standard Bank went to do their order. Our lawyer went to do his order. We came back to chambers. The judge took their order, read it, and said, I don't want this. He took our lawyer's order, read it, signed it, and he said, that is the order for today. No rule nisi, no contempt of court, no perjury. I was enjoined officially. I was part of the court proceedings. Auf Deutsch sagen wir es fertig. It was finished. Standard Bank did not have another opportunity to bully my child. If you remember, before, during, and after every hearing, I used to write to Standard Bank and beg them for a round table so that we can solve this amicably. On this occasion, that was over. I wrote a letter of demand. I calculated every cent that I had paid to the bank. I took the original price of the vehicle and I sent 2 demands. I said, 1, I need the fraud investigated. I don't want to hear anything about dealerships. I want to know inside the bank who bypassed bank system, because that carries a lot of other connotations. It's not only fraud. Who bypassed? You see, the banks are linked to the government institutions. That's why when you go to the bank and you give them your ID number, your picture comes up. That's why you can go to the bank and apply for your ID. It is the same as the NATIS registration certificate. That is the ID of the car. There is no way you can load a wrong engine number, a wrong VIN number, and a wrong year of registration to the bank system and the bank accepts it. You have to physically use your ID code to bypass it. In the letter of demand, I said investigation, because that person has to come out. And I said, here's the final figure for the car. We settle this and we move on. But the reason the person to date has never been brought forward, do you know what the reason is? Because that person will come down with half of top management all the way to Gokstad. That's why until today we don't know yet who bypassed a bank system to allow a fraud to go through. We still need to know that. By this time, I've had enough of their attacks. So I decide to move from Johannesburg and go and live in Cape Town to hide. So I'm never in South Africa permanently. I live abroad. But because of my social projects, I come home every 4 to 6 weeks and then spend 2 to 3 days doing all the admin things and making sure everything is running properly, and then I go back. My daughter stays in a different place. Sizfihlile manje. So I'm so scared. We are both scared to ever tell each other where we are. We would say things and then we get funny phone calls. Anyway, we're very scared to say anything. We phone each other morning and night just to make sure everything is fine. So I'm back abroad. In my absence, this is now July 2018. In my absence, I get a message that the court granted a rule nisi, that my daughter must hand over the car to Standard Bank for safekeeping. What? So a rule nisi is a provisional or temporary court order that will be made final or binding on a future date unless the opposing party appears in court to show good cause why that should fail. I'm in Boston. I'm in the middle of a very important assignment. I have no way of coming back immediately. I asked to see the papers. They scan and send them. I read in shock. I immediately call court. I order a transcript. A transcript is everything. A transcript is a document that has everything that is said in court on that day. So after every court hearing, I have a habit of ordering the transcript and filing it so that hey, I've never seen people who can deny like this. Deny. So anyway, I keep the transcript. Mama Piga, I always show them. So on this occasion, I order the transcript to read exactly what is said to grant such an order. I read this thing with disgust. Anyway, sifuni lawyer manje, but there's no way I can go home. By luck, we get a brilliant lawyer to assist my daughter in my absence to defend this release. They respond to the matter. They get a date for the following month. Even the date they give me is the most busiest time for the assignment I'm doing. There's no way I can travel. And my daughter says, don't worry, I'll do it. They go. I try very hard to schedule the date to come to South Africa. I fail. My daughter goes to court with her lawyer, and she insists on defending herself. The judge that day is the Honorable Justice Fabricius. He asks her, Miss Hammond, where is your lawyer? she says, okay, first of all, angikho la mina, so this is hearsay, ne? So she says, hey, Judge, lawyers complicate situations. I need a simple talk with you, namhlanje, without any legal jargon. One, I'm being abused by Standard Bank. I have never spoken to Standard Bank in my life. I have never opened an account at Standard Bank in my entire life. I have never bought a car in my life. I got a gift from my mother when I passed matric well, and that's the only car I've had ever since. I'm a student. She says, this is my mother's car, and this is my mother's installment sale agreement. Standard Bank is deliberately blocking her joinder application for 2 full years now. She has applied to be enjoined to defend this matter because there's fraud in this matter. So here's the thing. My mother has written 1 million letters begging Standard Bank to settle this. They refuse. She applies to be enjoined. They refuse. They apply for one interlocutory application after another as a smoke screen. When this matter, Judge, is very easy. This matter can be sorted out in 30 minutes. It is that easy. She says now there's a rule, Nisi, that I must hand over a car I know nothing about. Judge, I've never driven this car, and at this point, I don't even know where it is. Judge says, okay, you spoke of your mother. Where is she? She says, I don't know. Judge says, what? What do you mean you don't know? My daughter tells of all the attacks we are having, and for that reason, we are always hiding. We speak on a daily basis, but we don't tell each other where we are to protect each other. Judge says, wow. She says, I don't know. Judge said, Ms. Hammond, you said this matter is very easy. So I'm going to ask for your advice. How would you solve this matter? What do you think should be done? My daughter says, first of all, at the moment, there is so many open-ended, hanging interlocutory cases. I'd like us to apply the once and for all rule. Then I'd like my mother to be enjoined to handle her own story. This is not my story. She says, Judge, I'm going to tell you something personal. I have spent 5 years at law school. And today, the reason I spend so much time at law school is because I want to sit on the chair you are sitting on. I'm working very hard to be a lawyer. But today, I'm going to offer you all of that. Please put me on the stand. If I lie to you, make sure I don't practice law in South Africa. Get me arrested. Put me on the stand. That's my offer. Judge says, did you hear what you said? She said, yes. So what do you want me to do? What do you want from me? You said it's easy. She says, Judge, only one question. All this smoke screen for 4 years now is hiding not to answer one simple question. Who signed the installment sale agreement? We have overwhelming evidence that is not me, and Standard Bank insists that it's me. And their insistence raises a whole lot of violations. Put that aside. Put me on the stand. It's a Tuesday. Judge looks at my daughter. He says, Thursday. I think it was 23rd August. Said, Thursday, be here. I'll put you on the stand. And let me tell you this. You lie to me, not only want to practice law, I'm going to make sure the DPP is here to charge you. Do you understand? She says, my lord, I understand. Hey, Thursday comes.